The real question is this: are we living a full life? Are we making the right decisions when it comes to children, marriage, work, faith, and so many more issues we deal with daily? How can we know with confidence we are living a full life?
Welcome to the Full Life Crew podcast. We are your hosts and life coaches, Jareth and Deborah Navarre. We will help you find the confidence in those critical areas of your life. Our goal is to help you bring to your family the support, structure, and providence we all desire so we can live the life we want to live. A complete life, a joyful life, a full life.
We are so glad you're here. Now let's get started.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Jareth.
And I'm Deborah.
And today we're talking about letting your child fail.
Oh, that's a hard topic.
Yeah. And it even sounds bad.
Like, it's hard to watch your kid fail.
Like, if I was Googling this and I came across letting your child fail, I'd be like, what kind of moron would even create something like this?
I know, it almost makes you sound like a bad parent.
I know it does. And I think that's the dilemma, right?
Right. It is a dilemma because it's hard to watch your child when they struggle at something. You want to protect them. You don't want them to hurt. You don't want them to be disappointed. Or, it's like you just want to step in and help them all the time.
Yeah, and stop them from facing those challenges. But I think it's important to resist that urge as parents because failing is an essential part of learning and growing.
You're right. Because when kids are allowed to fail, they actually learn very important life lessons and how to cope with those.
I do think it's interesting how parents today, not everybody, but in general, it's like we live in the participation trophy era and everybody wants their child to win.
That's right. We talked about that in our last podcast.
Yeah, our last podcast, we talked about that. And I think that is an issue. It's like parents almost take it personal. Like, my kid's failing, it's my fault. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's almost like you feel like it's a reflection on your parenting skills.
Exactly.
Or you as a person, as a whole.
But is it?
No, it's not.
Well, for some reason, people want their kid to shine all the time.
Well, everybody wants their kid to shine all the time.
I understand. But it's in those down times when you find out what kind of person you are,
Yes, because there's been times where, the kids will call from school or something, they need something. And if I ran up to school every time they forgot something, they're never going to learn responsibility. So, I can see where you give the younger kids a chance and maybe help them. But as they get older, they have to learn.
I'm not saying, like, just let your kid fail all the time. I'm saying when your kid is doing something, especially that's challenging, and they don't get it the first time, it's like we as parents tend to want to step in and solve the problem for them instead of giving them the dignity to work through it.
Give me an example. What do you mean?
Okay.
Maybe we're not on the same page, or maybe everybody listening is kind of like, wait a minute, they just let their kids fail all the time?
No, we don't let them fail. Actually, our kids succeed a lot, but it's through failure that they succeed. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, some kids and parents are so afraid of failure, they don't even try. Or they try once or twice and then they give it up. Like, I've coached a lot of kids. And I've had kids tell me, like, I say, hey, come try out for the basketball team. Come try out for the baseball team. Oh, I'm no good at basketball. I'm no good at baseball. I'm like, how do you know? You're 9. How do you know you're no good? Oh, I'm just no good. I picked up the ball one time and I dribbled 3 times and it bounced off my foot. Well, I said, well, are you no good at basketball? I said, or have you never been taught how to play basketball? And then it's like, well, no, nobody's ever taught me. I'm like, well, why don't you look at it this way? Why don't you come play? I'll teach you. And then after a period of time, if you're officially not good at it after we put in work ethic, and we work effort and we've done all this stuff, then go on to something different. But I think that's where the society is right now. They try something for a very short window of time. They give very little effort, and it's I don't want to do that. They're so afraid of failure.
I totally agree on that because A lot of times, and in fact, a lot of times the parent actually tells them, you're not going to be good at basketball.
Yeah, how does the
So
parent
it's
know?
sometimes, I have to say, the parents put this in their head sometimes, like, you're not good at that. Like you won't succeed if you do this, or those kids are way better than you. So I think as a parent, you need to encourage them to try something, and if they fail, then pick them back up. But
Why do you think a parent? Because I have heard that. I've heard parents tell kids in front of my face, "Oh, you're not good at that. You're not good at that." Like, or like playing a position. Like I say, hey, you ever thought about pitching? Or, oh no, he's not a pitcher. Wow, who are you to decide what the kid is at 8 years old, whether or not he can pitch or not? I
so,
mean,
so these kids already have some of them. I'm not talking about everybody out there, but they already have this thing in their brain. I'm a failure, which they're not. So it's just I think kids should try everything.
I think by not letting them fail is why they sometimes feel like a failure.
Yeah.
It's like they're not used to it. But in life, I mean, we fail a lot. Like I think about my life in particular, and there's been a lot of failure, a lot of wins, but a lot of failures. I mean, I do find it interesting. Like, think about a baby.
Okay.
All right, think about a baby because we've had lots of babies.
Had a lot of babies.
So think about a baby. Like, would a parent when the baby is young? Think how crazy. It's like backwards. And what I'm saying is, imagine a baby, a brand new baby that can't walk yet, can't sit up, and that baby's just kind of laying there on the floor. One of the first things a baby does is what?
Roll over.
It rolls over. Now, does it just like it's laying there and just flips over real fast?
Oh goodness, no! It has to try and try and try.
And try and try and try and try. And then the baby eventually rolls over, and then the next thing it does is what?
It learns to sit up.
Well, before that, it picks up its head.
Yeah, it picks up.
And it'll pick his head up and hit the floor. Pick his head up, hit the floor. And it's like, oh my gosh, the kid's going to bust his face open. And then after they learn to sit up, after they learn to put their head up, they go to sit up. And then we get to the department where they start to crawl. And then they start pulling up on stuff. And then we get to the walking. Now, walking, even though all these same aspects, what I'm talking about, are in all these other parts of the baby's development, but in walking, it's very obvious. Think about what a parent does when a baby's learning to walk versus what they do when the kid is like 8 years old or 7 years old. It's opposite for some reason. And what I'm saying is, you're a mom. Imagine you and your newborn baby pulling up on the couch, reaching over and letting go and taking that first step and falling down. Would you run over there, scoop the baby up, and look at the baby and say, "Oh, you're just not good at walking"?
No, I'd be like, well, you did it! Yeah! And I'd be cheering for everybody to come in. Look, he did it! One step! Yay!
One step, fell, cracked his head open.
I'd be like, get back up, let's do it again!
Okay, well, why don't we do that when they're 8? Why don't we do that when they're 9? Why are we telling them, "Oh, you're not a pitcher"? "Oh, well, you're not good at that." Or why do we do that?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
Imagine if we treated babies that are learning to walk the same way most of us treat our 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-olds.
You're right, because if they try something and they don't do well the first time, you got to encourage them to try again.
We'd have a whole population of people that never knew how to walk.
Like, you just have to keep encouraging.
I mean, I think letting your kid fail is a natural thing. A parent watching a kid walk for the first time is going to stand back, watch that kid take that first step, hold your breath, watch the kid bounce off the floor. The reason they're short is because when they fall, they don't have to fall far. They got short little legs, and then they're in a diaper, so they got like cushion. So it's okay. And then what's beautiful about kids is, one thing I've learned about having kids is they are resilient.
They're very resilient. Like, they can come back from anything.
Physically, emotionally, they're resilient. Yeah. Like, you could fuss at them, and they're like, "Oh, I'm okay," or they're crying, and 3 minutes later, like, "I love you, Dad."
You're right. You have to set realistic expectations for them too, though.
Yes.
You can't expect them to be perfect all the time.
No.
So they are going to make mistakes. They are going to feel like a failure, but you just got to pick them back up.
I'm just saying, it's so mind-boggling when you stop and think about it. What if we treated the baby the same way we treat a 12-year-old?
No, I don't think the baby would ever learn to walk.
No. So the question is as parents, I think we need to step back and check ourselves. Are we encouraging our kids to try new things? Are we encouraging them to, do something and stick with it and do their best. And even if they do their best and it's not nowhere close to the kid down the street or whatever, at least it was his best.
Yeah, you don't want to put pressure on them to be perfect, but you help them understand that mistakes are part of the learning process.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you don't, like, as parents, we don't want our kids to make mistakes, but yet every parent listening right now knows you are a basket of mistakes. You constantly make mistakes. I make mistakes. I know Deborah does.
That's how you learn.
That's how you learn.
I learn a whole lot.
Yeah. Every day is a new learning experience. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, why did I do that? I mean, it's like, it's like we fail all the time, but yet the kids, we don't facilitate them enough to let them do this. We tell them up front. But why do we tell them, oh, you're not good at that at 12 years old? Is it because the kid's not good and potentially could not be good? Or is it because we are selfish as parents and we think it's too expensive, we're too busy? What do you think? It's more like that?
I think it's we don't want them to try and fail.
Really?
To where they feel like they're a failure.
We don't want our kids
to
feel
like a failure.
Like a failure, because we believe some reason that will make them feel less of a person when they get older.
Right. I think that's how adults think sometimes.
That's kind of childish.
It is very childish.
Wow.
But I think that's why a lot of parents tell their kids that. Because they're scared for their kid to go try something, not be good at it, and that kid to feel terrible. Which in reality, their kid would probably be excited to go try, excited to go do something new. And if they didn't do the best the first time, you know what? They're probably going to try it again.
Yeah. Hey, Deb, before we go too much further, this whole podcast is not possible without our sponsor. So let's take a moment to pause and thank our sponsor. Have you ever dreamed of owning your own business? Maybe you thought about franchises, but weren't quite sure which one's right for you? Well, let me tell you a little bit about Tiki. Tiki's is a shaved ice cream, and coffee franchise that started in Boca Raton, Florida, and now has expanded into multiple locations across the U.S. So what makes Tiki so special? Well, Tiki's offers unique products that people love. Shaved ice cream, and coffee. Not to mention their franchise model is low cost and easy to operate. Tiki's also provides extensive training and support to all their franchisees. So if you're looking for an opportunity to be your own boss, then I urge you to consider Tiki's Franchising. Contact them today at tikisfranchising.com to learn more about the franchise.
Thanks to Tiki's. Tiki's is a great business. Please look them up. Please support them. Great fundraiser. Great everything. So check them out. But back to our podcast. When we're talking about failure, sometimes you need to help them understand that failure is not the end of the world. Some kids may feel like if they failed, that's it. It's over. There's nothing else. And they have a hard time. So you need to talk to them. Calm them. Be a calm, supportive parent. Tell them this is not the end of the world. This is just one step in your life.
I heard a guy speak one time. And he basically said his main question to his kids were, okay, this happened, but what are you going to do now? And I think that needs to be the question. You need to provide, especially when they fail, they need to understand it's not the end of the world. So we need to provide support. Then we need to provide some education. Mm-hmm. And then we need to ask them, hey, what are you going to do now?
What did you learn from this?
What did you learn from it?
What kind of mistake do we make? How do we fix it?
What can you do different?
Well, yes, that's very, yes. So from there, you encourage them then. As you're talking to them, say, this is not the end. There's things we did wrong, but we can fix it. And encourage them, try again. And once they've had time to process their failure, think about maybe what they've done wrong. And they can go back and redo things differently next time. And usually succeed.
I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and some people aren't good with failure, and some people aren't good with, instruction, or some people aren't good with, and a lot of these things is because they have just kind of floated and they've been protected. So I think in the end, protecting the kids from failing is, there needs to be some moderation, but in the end, they need to be allowed to fail. Because failure is an essential part of life, and it includes childhood. By letting our children fail from time to time, we're giving them an opportunity to learn life lessons and how to cope with disappointment and how to keep going even when things are tough. So don't be afraid to let your kid fail. It just might be the best thing for them. Hope you've enjoyed this podcast. If you missed our previous one was sports and why you should let your kids play sports and all the lessons they learn. And there's a lot of failure in sports. Sports is a great way to develop highly functioning children. So make sure you tune into our next podcast. And while you're out there doing your absolute best to live your full life, your best life, remember, life's a journey.
Enjoy the ride.
Did you enjoy the podcast? Would you like to sponsor a podcast? If you're looking to advertise your brand, product, or message, our platforms are the best place to do it. We reach a large and engaging audience, and we can help you get your message out there. If you want to learn more about how you can advertise with us, visit us at thefulllifecrew.com/shop. So thank you once again for listening and tuning into our podcast. And just remember, while you're out there trying to live your absolute best full life, life's a journey. Enjoy the ride.